The Politicrat Daily Podcast online store is hotting up with more items to choose from. On your travels to the store at the-politicrat.myshopify.com, you will find 66 and counting. 66, at least 66 different products, all designed by yours truly. So come one, come all, to the Politicrat Daily Podcast online store at the-politicrat.myshopify.com. Really good stuff there. I think you'll love it. So get ready to go and have this great experience online. Bye now. Thank you very much for your support. Welcome to the Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore. It is Monday, February the 15th, 2021. On this edition of the Politicrat, social media and facts and opinions, and how the latter has predominated social media, and what we can do to undo that reality. Coming up next. Welcome back. So, social media. There have been repeated instances, by the way, first of all, of black footballers in England and beyond being racially abused, being abused by racists and having death threats hurled at them by racist football fans. And that is a huge problem now. It's been a huge problem forever. Same thing when we talk about the abuse and attacks and death threats against women online, particularly as you go across the spectrum, you find that black women in particular are most likely to be targeted with vile abuse, misogynistic abuse, misogynoirist abuse. And of course, every woman, black, white, Asian, Latinx, Native, any other woman whatsoever, trans women, are targeted so intensely and viciously online. And the people who control these social media platforms are white men. That is something we've got to look at as well. You have to look at everything. You don't just look at the end of what's happening or the effect. You look at everything, the causes, what's going on, the lack of policing on social media, that and also not just the lack of policing, but how things are policed, which is disproportionately against the people who are seeking to have their voices heard in their own, as people say, so-called safe spaces. Because as long as the people who are controlling social media platforms now, those white men who are controlling them, there really is no such thing as a safe space. Not when you have this hostile and violent, misogynistic, patriarchal society. There is, you know what I mean. There is such a thing as a safe space. But when you're dealing with social media and you're dealing with being on a platform that you do not control, there is no safe space in that regard. Because there are people, including yours truly, who have been suspended, their account suspended, meaning no more account for you because of some real nonsense, Mickey Mouse stuff. And then I have to get a brand new account and build up my followers from scratch. And I'm still trying to build up my following base from scratch. Really? I mean, it's only a fifth of what it was. But again, you've got people who have all these accounts, and you know the kinds of accounts I'm talking about, where people are not wearing any clothes. I'll just leave it at that. And yet these accounts proliferate. You don't have to go on there and spend any time on them. You just do a search and you just see these accounts. And they're not being suspended. They're not being stopped. They're not being banished. All of this stuff is not being stopped. It's just, that is what I'm saying. You have a particular type of person controlling these platforms. So if you got these white men and white straight men controlling these platforms, one of them, Mark Zuckerberg, has a spouse who is an Asian female. And then you see all of this horrible stuff being levied at Asian women. Asian American, Asian women, period. And you see all this stuff being thrown at Asian people in general. And you've got here in San Francisco the attacks against Asian people, Asian seniors, going through the roof out here. What's being done about all of this? And some of this stems quite sizably from social media. Some of it does. I mean, this stuff, this hatred against Asians obviously pre-existed social media, the early 2000s, which is principally when social media began. You know, Twitter in 2006 or so, and Facebook, you know, around the same time or a little earlier. I don't remember exactly when. But the point is that these are the kinds of places where this stuff is going on. And I think that there has to be something done about this. And nothing is being done about this. I mean, this is a real issue. This is a real issue. And so I really do want to talk about how we need to really put the brakes on what we're seeing on social media. Because I don't think that we can really have an effective, cohesive look at social media and have it function the way it should if the kinds of policies and the kinds of measures that are not being taken or are being taken just are ineffective. Obviously, if there are no measures at all, we have a bunch of nothingness. But the lack of any kind at all, of any kind of policing, proper policing of the platform. Social media is now becoming one of the biggest national security issues. I mean, that's my view. Social media has become a national security issue, international security issue. People are plotting online. People are plotting on this channel, this network, that network. The January 6th terror attack, the terrorist attack on that day was planned on social media, orchestrated on social media, messaged on social media. Come on, I mean, this is really obvious. Something has got to be done about these platforms. It's that simple. Something's got to be done about these platforms. And if we don't do anything about them, we are in a real pickle. We already are in a real pickle. Where is the oversight? Congress is really not doing much, and they should be in a position to do something. But I don't think they're doing anything of something. And that is a huge worry. People are being killed. People are being bullied. People are being all kinds of things online. We've got death threats against people in general, black people, brown people, Asian people, natives, women of all races being threatened. You've got politicians being threatened. And you've got these footballers I talked about at the top of this episode being abused with racist messages. And I really want to know what Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey are doing about any of this. Because it took them both until, a couple of weeks, a month or so before Donald Trump was going to be walking out of the White House for them to finally end his presence on Twitter. He'd been on Twitter for years. And we had been, many of us, you, me, many others, we'd been saying, Jack, get your act together and get rid of this guy off your platform. Get rid. Mark Zuckerberg, get rid of this menace off your platform. And it fell on deaf ears. Deaf ears. And I don't want to hear from the rationalizers, well, the reason why they're doing it now is because Joe Biden and da-da-da-da. Look, I don't care what the reason is. My point remains my point, which is for years, this guy has been on these platforms, he had been, and he was spreading the most toxic, vile, hate-fueled and hate-filled language. Retweeting these violent and these racist and misogynist things, saying them himself online, tweeting them out. Oh, well, it's because... No, I don't care what it's because of. I'm telling you that for years this guy has been doing this, and we had been heavily lobbying Zuckerberg and Dorsey to do something about it, and they did not. Then it was labels, tiny itty bitty ootsy bootsy labels. This may not be accurate. This is not accurate, in fine print that no one read. Then you would gradually take a few of his tweets out and delete them for him. Then you'd suspend him for 12 hours. And then you finally got rid of... I mean, this is just ridiculous. And so my whole thing is, what do you think we can do to have a more concrete and safer operational platform? Because obviously this platform ain't doing it in terms of Twitter and Facebook. Now, they're great platforms, at least Twitter is, in terms of getting a community together and hashtagging and doing things and constructively sending things out. But it's equally destructive when you've got all these death threats being thrown at people and people being nasty and evil. And these bots are all over the place. It's not healthy. And there's got to be something done about that. These are all algorithmic. These are man-made things. Algorithms that are computerized, that are put into a machine designed to get a response. Whether, I don't care where it is in the world. I'm not even going to just say only Russia, but anywhere else. Where these armies of bots, millions of them are thrown out there. There's got to be ways around this. And you've got a billion-dollar platform like Facebook is. You've got a billion-dollar platform like Twitter is. Figure it out and get rid. Please, this is not good enough. It's 2021. And both Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey have a heightened responsibility. But since they aren't heeding that in any appreciable way, what do you think we should be doing? Should we not be pooling our resources and developing a channel of our own developing a social media network of our own? Because this ain't cutting it, what we've got right now. And I love Twitter, I do. But what I don't love is the discriminatory policing, where you've got toxic masculinity running amok, and you've got racism and misogyny running amok. But when a black person, particularly a black woman, has something to say, she gets suspended or shut down or somehow muted and suspended and done with, and it's over. And then when someone white says something, particularly when a white man says something on Twitter, more often than not, he may be suspended for 12 hours, if that. And he just continues on, doesn't lose his account. I think James Woods is back on Twitter, the actor and right-winger. You know, you had Roger Stone until, a couple of years ago was on social media. Roger Stone, for goodness sake. You got Rudy Giuliani. He's still on Twitter, as far as I know. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. This guy was part of a terrorist attack. Now, how about this for a simple kind of irony? On September 11th, 2001, this guy was hailed as a hero. Some hero putting a command center in the basement of the World Trade Center. How heroic is that? More like heroically stupid. To put a command center for the NYPD in the basement of the World Trade Center, the very same World Trade Center that had been attacked previously back in 1993. Now that takes some level of genius to put a command center in that very same location that had previously been bombed. And he's hailed as America's mayor for doing that. For doing a job, by the way, that anyone in that position as mayor would have done, and probably, quite frankly, would have done a whole lot better. And now, January 6th, 2021, what happens? Trial by combat. Who said that on January 6th, 2021? Less than, 2 miles, if that, from the U.S. Capitol building? Who uttered those words on that day? That's right. America's so-called mayor. More like Russia's mayor. Rudy Giuliani. Welcome back. Social media is, I think, a lot of times very important, very good, very helpful. It's played a major part in some of the uprisings in the world, but it's also played a major part in the terrorism in the world too. And I just think most recently of what happened just a month and a week plus ago, here in the United States at the U.S. Capitol building, the terrorist attack of January the 6th, 2021, and how social media was utilized to such a huge degree in the weeks and months in the run-up to January 6th. I mean, Trump had tweeted out things, retweeted things. This was all over Facebook and Twitter, and it was obviously on other channels underground. I know Parler has been shut down pretty much. But the point is that these two big platforms are still a part of a lot of the filth that you see. They are being used to exhibit that filth. And I know that Facebook and Twitter have gone some ways towards getting rid of some of these accounts from you-know-who, with the the letter of the alphabet. You know who. I'm not even going to mention their name, but you know who I'm talking about. That particular group with a letter of the alphabet attached to it. The platforms of Facebook and Twitter have started aggressively getting rid of those accounts. They began it a few months ago, and I think they're still doing it. And that's good. I commend them. I commend them for doing that. But there's still so much more that needs to be done. And this wholesale eliminating of accounts that haven't done anything, and I'm talking about black people. I'm talking about white women, black women, Asian women, Latinas, Native women, who they may say something or whatever, and then their account's gone. Or anybody black, their account's gone. That again, and as I said, they're white men, white straight men who are controlling these platforms. And so they are allowing certain content like all these, all this really destructive stuff and the other destructive stuff that goes on online. And you know what I'm talking about. All these accounts where, people are walking around with no clothes on. And, I'm not a prude or anything. I'm just saying that there is an inconsistency in the messaging and in the way that these forums and fora are being policed. That is exact. And it's all subjective to what the whims of these particular white men are, which is why you've got accounts all over creation on Twitter where you've got women with no clothes on all the time, and that's the only thing that they've got there and I don't care if it's a bot or not. The fact is that's there. Or you've got men, flashing their genitalia. Really? How do I know this? It's an easy search. And you can find all of this garbage and this destructive garbage and this misogynistic garbage. It's within 2 clicks. And that's still there. That's not being suspended. Those accounts aren't being shut down. What about that? And we need to get rid of these kinds of accounts. And these ones where, there's these violent imagery or death threat. What is that doing on social media? How was it that we even had to have YouTube having video of the massacre, that violent, that terrorist out in New Zealand, killing people, killing Muslims? How did it take YouTube and Twitter and all and Facebook? How did it take them half a day to remove that violent content? Come on. Everybody know. I got suspended for literally posting the first 10 seconds of pre-game warm-up. A walkout. It's a walkout song for my football club, literally. And I get it. I should know better as an attorney. Copyright. 7 seconds. Account gone. Really? It wasn't violent content. It wasn't anything harmful or misogynistic or none of that. It was people walking out onto a football pitch in their warm-up jackets to the theme tune of the football club I support as a fan. And for that, bounced. You lose your nearly 5,000 followers. Gone. But that person over there with the death threats, and that person over here with all the naked women, and that person over there with the dick pics, and that they can keep posting their garbage. So it's just unreal. And again, it's also about who is controlling the platforms. I'm telling you, everybody knows what I'm saying is true, and everybody knows that they have gone online, maybe not every single one of you, but everybody knows that if they do a simple search on these platforms, they can find all this stuff within seconds. Seriously, what is Twitter doing to get rid of this garbage? What are you doing, Jack Dorsey, to get rid of that garbage? Huh? What are you doing? What is your team doing? What is Twitter safety doing to get rid of this poison and to get rid of all of these accounts that threaten and violate and are just really evil towards women of all groups, of all racial groups and backgrounds? Women, period. In general, what is Jack Dorsey doing about that? What's Mark Zuckerberg doing about that? And quite frankly, I don't know that Mark Zuckerberg even gives a rat's. You know, Congress can haul him in front of them 1 million times a month. And he would just sit there with the same blank expression on his face, this very pallid, blank expression, and he will just say the same thing 100 different times in 100 different ways to Sunday. And nothing will be done. It's the same thing with what's going on with Amazon and all this stuff. Antitrust issues abound. And there needs to be, and I know there's some things going on with that, but there needs to be more. Something has got to be done. You cannot have this level of complete control of what people communicate and how they communicate it by 3 people, by 4 people, by 5 people on the entire planet, basically. What are we going to do about this is the central question. What can we do? I really do believe that if we're going to truly have safe spaces, because you really can't have a safe space, in my view, on platforms that you do not control, that you just cannot have it. Now, someone can feel free to take me to task on that. No problem. But let's talk about that then, because you cannot have a safe space in a platform you do not control. You just can't, because someone controlling that platform can yank it out from under you at any time. That's the reality. If you go to someone's house as a guest and they turn around 15 minutes later and tell you, you've got to leave now, get out. Once they have said those words to you, you are no longer their guest. You have now become a trespasser. And if you refuse to leave, you are certainly a trespasser, and you could be subject to a number of different actions, including having the police called on you. And if you're black, well, you know how that's going to end up. What I'm saying is that if the person who invited you into their home all of a sudden 15 minutes later says, right, no, you're out, gone, leave now, leave now. They have the right to do that if they want, for any reason or no reason. This is what happens on social media. That is not a safe space. If you have an account and you're just minding your own business, and I get it, Twitter and Facebook have their rules and rules in terms of service and policy, but they aren't enforced evenly, and they're not enforced for everybody. Copyright violation, I get it, and I should know as an attorney. Good God, shame on me. However, There are other people on Twitter who violate copyright all the time, and they are not removed. Furthermore, those are particular kinds of people who do not look like me. They are usually white. Some of them may be famous or not. So there is no safe space for black people on a social media platform that is controlled and algorithmized, for lack of a better word, by white men, white straight men. There's no safe space for women of any group, any race, or trans women either. There's no safe space for trans people on a platform that is controlled by a straight white man. Where is that? Where is the safe space? You've had dozens and dozens of trans people who've been killed this year, black trans women specifically, who've been killed this year, who were killed last year. And I dare say that some of that had a social media influence in it too. Maybe not, because this hatred for people who are trans and for black trans people pre-existed social media, as I said earlier. But I am telling you, we have to come up with our platform, and we really need to. This ultimately needs to be the solution. We have to come up with a platform of our own. And by we, I mean black people, I mean brown people, Latinx, I would say native people as well. Anybody, Asian, white, who really do want to have conversation and dialogue and plan and do all kinds of things with their businesses and all this, and do it in a safe space, a truly safe space. Yes, of course, the space that you build may not be as big as the one on Twitter or Facebook or wherever, but it will be a better and safer space because you control it. You control it. And I do think that if people pool resources together, find like-minded individuals, all the people who are listening to this, anybody who has ever been targeted on social media, what's wrong with linking up with others who have also been targeted on social media in these misogynistic ways, these very violent ways, racism, racist ways, all these things? What is wrong with us linking together, having conversations, strategizing together, whether it's on Zoom or anything else, and developing a game plan to have a media channel where we can communicate safely and where we can root out anybody who is a menace, someone who is violent or threatening. We can do that, can't we? There's nothing that stops us from doing that, surely. I mean, I don't see what would stop us from doing that. I'm sure there'd be the usual roadblocks and challenges. But how do you start a business? I mean, the way you start a business, wouldn't that not be the similar way that you would start one of your own social media platforms? How did Zuckerberg and Dorsey get started? Surely they had their advantages. Maybe, maybe not. They got together with people. They didn't do all of this by themselves. I think there's more than enough that we have resource-wise if we all pool our something or somethings together and have some conversation about this. I mean, you've got all of these underground channels, some of which are being ended, thank goodness, like the ones I've mentioned. You've got people underground doing all this heinous communication, all this violence and racism. Oh, we just want to say what we want to say. They're saying it for ill. There's nothing positive about what they're saying. There's nothing life-affirming about it. It's all gutter and basement. And that's been funded by somebody. How did they get that together? So they're funding filth and violence in rhetoric and misogyny and racism in their rhetoric. That's being funded for social media platforms underground. Meanwhile, what are we doing? If these vile creatures can actually fund social media underground platforms that allow people to just get on there and post all kinds of violent stuff, say all kinds of racist and misogynist things, then surely we, as people who care about decency and people who care about having positive interactions and good debate and dialogue that's healthy and that is affirmative and positive and done in a spirit of a loving place, a place of strategy for positive outcomes and moving forward and progressing. Surely we can fund our own channel, whether it's underground or overground. We can surely fund our own, can't we? Of course we can. What's stopping us? By the way, what's stopping you from starting your own business? As I said before, think of the things that you are good at. Write them down and start to link those great positive attributes that you have into a business or an idea or something, or a facilitator of a goal that you have not yet fulfilled that you want to fulfill. I know you can do it, and you know you can do it. You just have to take that first step. You have so much power within you. It's just a question of whether or not you are afraid to use it, or whether you are ready to unleash it for good. The society says no, but make sure you say yes to yourself every day. Don't forget, you can patronize the business that I have. The Politicrat Daily Podcast online store features all kinds of merchandise. More is being added. And it's coming very soon. Very soon indeed. As soon as tomorrow, in fact, I will be introducing some more products. And I think you'll really like these. So please, don't forget to go to the-politicrat.myshopify.com. You will like what you see. Remember, buy, not bye-bye. Thank you very much for listening to this edition of The Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore.